It was a calm Saturday evening when Mira looked at herself in the mirror one last time. The reflection staring back at her didn't look like the same woman she used to be. Her hair had turned a little gray, her hands had small wrinkles, and her eyes carried both wisdom and sadness. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "Tonight will be fine. Just smile, Mira." She wore her soft pink sari, the one her late husband had gifted her years ago, and added a small pearl necklace. It was simple, but it made her feel graceful. The phone on her bed buzzed. It was a message from her son, Arav. "Mom, we'll meet you at the Royal Orchid restaurant at 8. Don't be late." Mira smiled faintly. The Royal Orchid was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. She had never been there before. Arav's wife, Nisha, had probably chosen it. Everything about Nisha screamed luxury: branded clothes, expensive perfumes, loud jewelry, and a tone that always made Mira feel small. Mira sat on the bed for a moment, looking at the message. Something inside her felt uneasy. Maybe it was just her nerves. But deep down, she felt something was wrong. She didn't know that this dinner would soon become one of the most unforgettable nights of her life. As she got ready to leave, she glanced at a small framed photo on her dressing table, her husband, smiling warmly. "I wish you were here," she whispered. "You'd know how to handle all this." She took her purse, locked the door, and left her small but cozy apartment. The air outside was cool and breezy. The city lights shimmered like fireflies. The sound of traffic mixed with laughter from nearby cafes. As Mira stepped into the taxi, she looked out of the window, lost in her thoughts. And then, she said to herself, "I still remember that night." The restaurant glowed like a palace. Chandeliers sparkled through the tall glass windows. Fancy cars lined the entrance, and waiters in black coats greeted guests with polite bows. Mira stepped out slowly, adjusting her sari. For a moment, she hesitated. She felt out of place among all the designer dresses and polished shoes. But she gathered her courage and walked in. Inside, the air smelled of rich food and perfume. Soft jazz music played in the background. She searched for Arav and Nisha. After a few minutes, she saw them at a corner table. Arav waved with a smile, but Nisha didn't even look up from her phone. "Mom!" Arav said warmly as he stood up and hugged her. "You look nice." Mira smiled. "Thank you, Beta. You both look good too." Nisha finally looked up, her lips curling slightly. "Oh, Auntie, you came," she said in a sweet but sharp tone. "We were just wondering if you'd find this place easily. You're not used to these kinds of restaurants, right?" The words hit Mira like a small sting. But she smiled politely. "Yes, it's my first time here." "It's beautiful." Arav frowned slightly at his wife but didn't say anything. Mira took her seat quietly. A waiter approached and handed them the menu. It was thick and shiny, with dishes Mira couldn't even pronounce. "Order anything you like, Mom," Arav said. Before Mira could answer, Nisha leaned in and said loudly, "But maybe we should order something simple for her. The food here is quite refined. Not everyone can enjoy it." A few heads from nearby tables turned. Mira's face burned with embarrassment. She wanted to disappear into her seat. Arav looked uncomfortable, but Nisha continued to scroll through the menu, pretending she hadn't noticed. Mira softly said, "I'll just have some soup and bread." "Perfect," Nisha said with a fake smile. "That's easy enough." As the waiter left, Nisha began talking about her new business deal, the new luxury car she wanted to buy, and how she hated people who didn't understand class. Every few sentences, her eyes would fall on Mira, as if she was reminding her that she didn't belong there. Mira sat silently, stirring her soup. She listened to every word but said nothing. Inside, her heart ached. All she ever wanted was peace in her son's home, love from her daughter-in-law, and a little respect. Was that too much to ask? Halfway through dinner, Nisha's friend Ria entered the restaurant and spotted them. "Nisha," she shouted from across the hall. "Oh my God, it's been ages." Nisha stood up excitedly and hugged her. Ria looked at Mira and said, "Oh, is this your mother?" Nisha laughed lightly. No. This is Arv's mom. She's simple, you know. Old school. But she wanted to come along tonight." The words sliced through Mira like a knife. Her hands trembled slightly as she set down her spoon. The waiter refilled her glass silently. The soft music in the background suddenly felt heavy. Arv tried to change the topic, but Nisha and Ria kept talking and laughing loudly. Mira's heart sank with every giggle. Her son seemed trapped between his love for his wife and respect for his mother. She could see the discomfort in his eyes, but he didn't say a word. When the food arrived, Nisha began taking pictures for social media. "Everything has to look perfect," she said. "Unlike some people's taste." Mira's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. She forced a smile. "The food smells nice," she said softly. Nisha chuckled. "Oh, Auntie, that's not smell, that's truffle oil. It's very expensive. You probably never had it before." Arv finally spoke. "Nisha, enough. Mom's just trying to enjoy dinner." Nisha rolled her eyes. "I'm just joking. Why are you so serious?" The rest of the dinner passed in silence. When the bill arrived, Arv reached for his wallet, but Nisha stopped him. "Let me pay. It's my treat." Mira immediately said, No, let me at least contribute something." Nisha laughed again. "Oh, Auntie, that's cute. You don't have to worry about that. This place is quite pricey." She said it loudly, and a couple at the next table turned to look at them. Mira's throat tightened. For the first time in years, she wished she could vanish. As they left the restaurant, Nisha held Arv's arm tightly and walked ahead. Mira followed quietly behind. Outside, the cool breeze touched her tear-stained cheeks. The night sky looked beautiful, but her heart felt heavy. When they reached the car, Nisha turned and said with a smirk, "Next time, Auntie, maybe we can go somewhere more comfortable for you, like a small cafe or something." Arv glared at her. "Nisha, stop it." But Mira gently touched his arm. "It's okay, Beta. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Inside, she was broken. The car ride was silent. Only the faint sound of the radio played. When they dropped Mira home, she smiled and said, "Thank you for dinner." Arv hugged her tightly before leaving. Nisha stayed in the car, looking at her phone. As the car disappeared down the street, Mira stood by her gate, holding her purse tightly. She walked into her house, closed the door, and sat in the dark. The quietness felt like a blanket, heavy and cold. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every word Nisha had said replayed in her head. Simple. Old school. Not used to this. Those words echoed like poison. She looked around her small living room, the faded curtains, the old clock ticking on the wall, the family photos. Every memory seemed to whisper, "You don't belong anymore." But then, something inside her changed. Maybe it was pain. Maybe pride. Maybe both. She walked to her husband's photo and whispered, "She humiliated me tonight. But this isn't over. Not yet." Her tears dried. Her eyes grew steady. She sat down with her old diary, the one she hadn't opened in years, and began to write. Line by line, thought by thought, she began forming something. A plan. Not out of anger, but out of quiet strength. Because Mira knew one thing, people like Nisha only respected what they could see. And Mira was about to show her something she'd never forget. Outside, the night wind rustled the trees. The city slept. But inside that small house, Mira was wide awake, her heart no longer weak, but burning with calm determination. She whispered softly, "You tried to humiliate me, Nisha, but soon, you'll regret it." And as the clock struck midnight, Mira closed her diary with a soft thud. Her eyes sparkled with something new, not sadness, but purpose. Because this story, her story, was just beginning. The next morning, sunlight peeked through Mira's curtains, but her eyes were already open. She hadn't slept all night. The humiliation from last night still stung like an open wound. Every laugh, every sarcastic word, every look of pity from Nisha replayed again and again in her mind. But this morning, there was something different about her. The sadness was still there, yes, but behind it, there was fire. Calm, steady fire. She walked into the kitchen, poured herself a cup of tea, and looked out the window. The street outside was slowly waking up, children running to school, a milkman ringing his bicycle bell, women chatting near the corner shop. Life was moving as usual. But inside Mira's heart, a storm was quietly forming. She sat at the small wooden table with her diary open. Last night's words stared back at her, "She humiliated me, but she will regret it." Mira took a deep breath and whispered, "Let's begin." Her plan wasn't about shouting or fighting back. It wasn't about revenge and anger. It was about showing her daughter-in-law that dignity, once taken, can be reclaimed with grace. She wanted Nisha to see the woman behind the simple sorry, strong, intelligent, and brave. As she thought about it, she smiled faintly. "If she thinks I'm weak," she murmured, "then she has no idea who I really am." Later that afternoon, Mira called her old friend, Anjali. "Hello, Anjali," she said softly. "It's been a long time." "Mira! My goodness! After so long! How are you?" "I'm fine," Mira replied, though her voice trembled slightly. "Actually, I wanted to ask for your help." Anjali's tone changed. "Of course, tell me. You remember the community project we used to run for women years ago?" "Yes, of course. You were the one who handled most of it." "Why?" Mira hesitated for a moment. "I want to start something again. Something small. For women who want to work but don't know how to start." Anjali was silent for a moment, surprised. "That's wonderful, Mira. But after so many years? Are you sure?" Mira smiled. "I've never been more sure." Anjali promised to meet her the next day to discuss the details. When Mira hung up, she looked at her husband's photo again. "You always said I was stronger than I believed," she whispered. "Let's prove it now." The next day, Mira and Anjali met at a small cafe near the market. They talked for hours, about ideas, locations, and how to gather women who needed a start. Mira's voice grew steady and confident as she explained her plan. Anjali nodded. "This is exactly what our area needs, Mira. A small community space where women can learn stitching, cooking, or even how to sell their handmade things online." Mira's eyes lit up. "Yes. We can start small. I still have my sewing machine. And I know at least 5 women who'd love to join." By the time they finished their tea, they had a plan, not a dream anymore, but a real plan. Days turned into weeks. Mira's home slowly transformed. The small living room became a workshop filled with fabric, sewing machines, and women laughing as they worked. The house that once felt empty now echoed with energy and hope. Mira trained them, guided them, and taught them not just skills but confidence. She felt alive again. And every evening, after everyone left, she'd sit with her diary and write updates. Week 1, 5 women joined. Week 2, we finished 10 dresses. Week 3, we sold our first set at the market. For the first time in years, Mira didn't feel like a burden or an outsider. She felt useful, powerful even. But she hadn't forgotten Nisha. No, not at all. One afternoon, Arav called. Mom, how are you? We haven't seen you much these days. I'm fine, Beta, Mira said with a smile. Just keeping myself busy. Oh, really? What are you doing? Nothing much, just some small work with local women. That's great, Mom. You always loved helping others. Arav sounded happy. We should come visit soon. Mira's heart fluttered. Yes, do come. She knew Nisha would come too, and that was exactly what she wanted. A week later, Mira got the message she had been waiting for. Mom, we'll come over for lunch this Sunday. She smiled. Perfect timing, she whispered. The women from her group helped her decorate the house beautifully, fresh flowers, colorful fabrics, small crafts made by their own hands. The place looked warm and lively. Mira cooked all of Nisha's favorite dishes, paneer butter masala, biryani, and homemade desserts, but not to impress her. This time, she had a reason. When Sunday came, Mira was ready. Arav and Nisha arrived around noon. The moment Nisha stepped inside, she froze. The house looked completely different. It wasn't just neat, it was vibrant. The air smelled of food and success. Women were working cheerfully in one corner, sewing and chatting. Mom, what's all this? Arav asked, surprised. Mira smiled warmly. This is my new little project. We make handmade clothes and sell them in the market. Nisha blinked. You mean, you're running this from here? Yes, Mira replied calmly. And we just got our first big order last week. A boutique owner saw our designs online and wants more. Arav looked at her with pride. That's amazing, Mom. But Nisha's expression changed. Her confident smile faded. Online? You're selling things online? Mira nodded. Yes. My friend Anjali helped me create a small page. We post photos, and people buy directly. Nisha didn't say anything. She just looked around, as if trying to make sense of it. For the first time, Mira could see something new in her eyes, surprise. Maybe even respect. They all sat for lunch. The food was delicious, and the atmosphere was bright. The women joined Mira at the table after their work, laughing and talking about deliveries and designs. One of them said, Auntie, you're like our leader now. You've changed all our lives. Mira laughed humbly. No, my dear. We've done this together. Nisha forced a small smile. She kept quiet most of the time. After lunch, Arav said, Mom, you've built something amazing here. I'm proud of you. Mira smiled softly. Thank you, Beta. But when she looked at Nisha, their eyes met for a second. Mira didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her success spoke louder than any words could. When they were leaving, Nisha said in a low voice, Your place looks nice. Mira smiled kindly. Thank you. You should come more often. Nisha nodded slightly and walked away. As the car drove off, Mira stood at her gate again, the same place where she had once cried silently after that humiliating dinner. But tonight, her heart was light. She looked at the sky and whispered, This is just the beginning. Later that evening, Nisha sat in her bedroom, scrolling through social media. When she opened the local business page, her jaw dropped. There, right on the front page, was a post titled, Meet Mira Sharma, the woman empowering housewives with her small business. The post had dozens of comments praising her work. Nisha stared at the photo, Mira smiling confidently beside the women from her group. She looked radiant. Strong. Nisha bit her lip. She remembered how she had mocked her for being old school. Now that same old school woman was trending online. Arav entered the room. Did you see Mom's article? Isn't it great? Nisha forced a smile. Yes, it is. But inside, her pride was cracking. Meanwhile, Mira sat by her window, sipping tea as the city lights shimmered outside. Her phone buzzed, a message from the boutique owner. "We loved your latest designs. Can we meet tomorrow for a bigger order?" Mira's eyes glowed with excitement. She wrote back politely, "Of course. Thank you." Then she looked at her diary and wrote, "Today, I felt something I haven't felt in years, peace. But this journey isn't over. Some lessons are still left to be learned." As she closed the diary, the clock struck 10. A soft smile touched her lips. She didn't know what the coming days would bring, praise, jealousy, or confrontation, but one thing was certain. She was no longer the quiet, scared woman who had sat silently in that luxury restaurant. She was Mira Sharma, and she was finally writing her own story. That night, as the lights went out, Mira whispered softly, "You wanted to humiliate me, Nisha, but you gave me a reason to rise." And with that thought, she drifted to sleep, peaceful, strong, and ready for whatever came next. The next few weeks brought a new rhythm into Mira's life. Her mornings began with the sound of sewing machines humming, laughter filling the small room, and the aroma of fresh tea spreading through the air. Women from nearby colonies started visiting her, asking if they could join her group. Mira welcomed them all with her usual warm smile. "We'll work together," she said. "There's space for everyone who wants to learn." Her project, which began as a small effort, had now become something larger, a symbol of hope. The Mira Women's Collective, as Anjali named it, was becoming known in the area. Shops started placing small orders, and even a few online customers began requesting custom designs. Every evening, Mira would sit by her window with her diary, writing down the progress. 5 more orders today. Reena's son finally started school. Anjali said our designs are selling faster now. Her life, which had once felt quiet and lonely, was now full of purpose. But she didn't realize that her success had started creating a silent storm in another home, her son's. Arav was proud of his mother. Every time someone at his office mentioned her story, his chest swelled with pride. But Nisha? She was not proud, she was irritated. It began subtly. One night, while scrolling through her phone, she came across a new video posted by the local news page. The title read, "Ordinary Woman, Extraordinary Spirit, How Mira Sharma is Changing Lives." In the video, Mira sat gracefully, talking about how her group had helped dozens of women find confidence again. Her voice was calm, her smile humble, but her words had strength. The reporter asked, "What inspired you to start this?" Mira smiled softly and said, "I was humiliated once. It broke me for a moment, but I decided not to let that moment define me. I wanted to rise, not just for myself, but for other women who felt small." Nisha froze as those words echoed through the room. She knew exactly what that humiliation was about. Her heart skipped a beat. Her face turned pale. Arav, sitting beside her, said proudly, "Isn't Mom amazing? She's really making a difference." Nisha forced a smile. "Yes, she is." But inside, her pride twisted into anger. "She's talking about me," Nisha thought bitterly. "She's using that dinner incident to make herself look like a victim and me like a villain." She put down the phone and walked to the balcony, trying to calm herself. But the more she thought, the angrier she became. That night, while Arav slept, Nisha lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced with thoughts. Everyone's praising her now, even my friends have shared her video. They'll think I was cruel. I can't let that happen. The next morning, she decided to call Mira. Her tone was unusually sweet. "Hello, Auntie. How are you?" Mira smiled. "I'm fine, Beta. How are you?" "Oh, I'm good. I just saw your interview. You looked so confident." "Thank you, Nisha. It was unexpected." The reporter just wanted to highlight our group's work. Yes, of course, Nisha said, forcing a laugh. Actually, I was thinking, maybe I can help you. I have experience in social media and branding. Maybe I can manage your page? You know, make it look more professional? Mira paused for a second. She could sense something strange in Nisha's sudden kindness, but she didn't want to sound rude. That's very kind of you, Beta, she said. If you'd like to help, I'd be happy to have your guidance. Perfect, Nisha said quickly. Let's meet this weekend. I'll show you how to handle it better. After the call ended, Mira sighed. Something didn't feel right. Nisha had never shown interest before, not even when she had first started the project. So why now? Still, Mira believed in giving people chances. Maybe she's changing, she thought. That weekend, Nisha visited Mira's house. The women were working on a new batch of dresses. Laughter and conversation filled the air. Mira welcomed her warmly. Nisha, come. Let me show you what we're working on. Nisha looked around, her eyes scanning everything, the fabrics, the sewing machines, the women busy at work. She smiled politely, but inside, she was comparing the simple walls, the modest setup, and thinking, people are making such a fuss about this? She sat beside Mira and opened her laptop. Auntie, I've made a few changes to your online page. I added some tags, some new posts, and a short video of you. You'll get more attention now. Mira smiled. That's wonderful, Nisha. Thank you. Nisha spent the entire afternoon pretending to help, but secretly, she was making changes that would soon cause trouble. She edited posts, removed credits of other women, and uploaded photos that made it look like she was a part of the project too. Before leaving, she said sweetly, I'll keep handling it from now on. You just focus on your work. Mira thanked her again. But 2 days later, trouble began. One of the women, Rena, came running to Mira's house with her phone in hand. Auntie! Look at this. Mira took the phone. On the project's social media page, a new post had been uploaded. The caption read, All credits to Nisha Sharma for guiding and helping this women's business grow. Dozens of comments praised Nisha's kindness and support. Mira's face turned pale. She scrolled through the post, her photo was missing. Only the logo and Nisha's name were there. Rena said angrily, You built this, Auntie. Why is she taking the credit? Mira's hands trembled. Maybe it's a mistake, she said softly. Let me talk to her. She called Nisha immediately. Hello, Nisha, I saw the post you made. Oh yes, Auntie. Isn't it nice? I just added my name because people should know I'm helping you now. Mira tried to stay calm. But it looks like the project is yours, not ours. Oh, Auntie, don't worry. People understand. I'm just helping you reach more audience. Mira's voice softened. But you didn't even ask before changing it. Nisha's tone turned cold. Auntie, I'm doing you a favor. Without my help, you'd still be selling clothes in the market. I know how online things work. Just trust me. Before Mira could reply, the line disconnected. Mira sat still, her phone in her lap. The women around her looked confused and angry. Anjali, who had just arrived, said firmly, Mira, this isn't right. She's taking over your hard work. Mira nodded slowly. I know. But let's wait. Let's see what she does next. The next few days were hard. Nisha kept posting things that made it look like she was the owner of the project. She even started receiving calls from people praising her for supporting local women. One night, Mira sat in front of her husband's photo again. I tried to stay silent, she whispered, but now she's trying to erase everything I built. I can't let that happen. Her eyes glistened with tears, but her voice was steady. This time, I will not cry. I will act. She called Anjali the next morning. We need to take back what's ours. Anjali agreed. Let's meet tomorrow. I'll bring my nephew, he's good with computers. We'll find a way. The next day, they met at the cafe again. Anjali's nephew, Raghav, was a smart young man who quickly understood what had happened. Auntie, he said, she changed all the account passwords and listed herself as the page owner. But don't worry, I can report it and recover your control. We'll just need some proof that this business belongs to you. Meera smiled. We have plenty of proof, receipts, photos, and registration papers. I never thought I'd need them for this reason. Within 2 days, Raghav helped restore Meera's access and removed Nisha's false claims. The page was back to normal, with every woman's name included again. Meera posted a new update herself. True work never hides behind names. It shines through hearts that build it together. The post spread fast. Hundreds of comments poured in, praising her honesty and courage. Arav saw the post too, and that evening, when he returned home, he confronted Nisha. Nisha, why did you do that? He asked angrily. Why would you take credit for Mom's work? Nisha tried to defend herself. I was just helping her. People misunderstood. Misunderstood? Arav's voice rose. You changed her page, removed her name, and made it look like your project. That's not help, Nisha, that's jealousy. Nisha's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't of guilt, they were of frustration. Everyone's talking about her, Arav. My friends, my colleagues. They all admire her. What about me? Don't I matter? Arav stared at her in disbelief. You humiliated her once, and she responded with kindness and strength. And now you're jealous because people respect her for it? Do you even hear yourself? Nisha turned away, silent. That night, for the first time, Arav slept in the guest room. Meanwhile, Meera had no idea about the argument. She spent her evening working, smiling, and planning new designs with the women. But deep down, she felt something, a storm was coming again. Because people like Nisha didn't stop easily. As she closed her diary that night, she wrote one last line. Sometimes, silence can heal. But sometimes, silence gives others power. It's time I speak. Her eyes looked firm, her hands steady. The calm woman was ready again, not to fight with words, but to protect her dignity. And she knew, the next move would change everything, for her, for Arav, and for Nisha. It had been almost 2 weeks since the ugly social media incident. Life had returned to a strange calm. Meera was back to her daily rhythm, guiding the women, stitching, packing orders, and writing in her diary every night. But deep inside, she knew that things had changed forever between her, Arav, and Nisha. She had not spoken to Nisha since that phone call. Arav came to visit her once, quietly, without Nisha. He looked tired, his face pale from sleepless nights. Mom, he said softly, I'm sorry for everything. Nisha crossed a line. Meera smiled faintly. It's not your fault, Beta. Everyone learns their lesson in time. Arav nodded slowly. She feels embarrassed now. But she won't admit it. She said people are gossiping about her. Meera sighed. Maybe this will teach her to value humility. Arav looked down. She wants to invite you to dinner. Meera froze for a moment. Dinner? Yes. She said she wants to make things right. The words hung in the air for a few seconds. Meera looked into her son's eyes, she saw honesty there, but also confusion. Where? She asked quietly. At the Royal Orchid, he said. The name alone made Meera's heart skip a beat. The same restaurant. The same place where she had once been humiliated in front of strangers. She took a deep breath. All right. I'll come. Arav looked surprised. Really? Yes, she said calmly. If she wants to talk, I'll listen. But inside, Mira knew this wasn't just a dinner. It was something deeper, a test of dignity, of patience, of strength. The following Saturday, Mira stood before her mirror again, the same mirror she had looked into weeks ago. But this time, her reflection looked different. The sadness was gone. The fear had vanished. In its place stood a woman glowing with quiet pride. She wore a cream-colored sari with a golden border, elegant and graceful. Her hair was neatly tied, her eyes soft but steady. Before leaving, she whispered to her husband's photo, "Wish me strength. Tonight, I face them again." Then she picked up her purse, locked the door, and stepped into the night. The royal orchid shimmered as brightly as before, golden lights, tall glass walls, and the sound of soft piano music. But this time, Mira didn't feel small. She walked with her head held high. At the entrance, she spotted Arav and Nisha waiting. Arav smiled warmly. "Mom, you look beautiful." Nisha smiled too, but her eyes looked nervous. "Auntie. I'm glad you came." Mira smiled gently. "Of course, Beta. Let's go inside." They were seated at a quiet corner table. The same kind of corner where humiliation had once unfolded, but tonight, something felt different. The restaurant was full, the hum of voices soft and elegant. A waiter came with menus, but Mira didn't touch hers. She wasn't here for food. After a few minutes of silence, Nisha finally spoke. "Auntie, I know I hurt you before." Mira stayed quiet. Nisha took a deep breath. "I behaved badly, not once, but many times. I made fun of you, took your credit, and disrespected you. I thought I was better because I had money and status. But now I see I was wrong." Mira looked at her calmly. "Why do you see it now, Nisha?" Nisha hesitated. "Because everyone I meet respects you more than they respect me. They talk about your kindness, your courage, even my own mother said she wishes she could be like you." Mira's eyes softened. "Respect can't be bought, Nisha. It's earned." Nisha nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "I know. I let my pride blind me. I wanted to apologize." Arav smiled faintly, relieved to hear those words. "I'm glad you're saying this, Nisha." But Mira's eyes were still thoughtful. She didn't reply immediately. She stirred her water glass gently and said, "You humiliated me once in this very place. You made me feel small in front of strangers. Do you know what that felt like?" Nisha's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, Auntie. I think about it every day." Mira's tone was calm, not angry. "You see, humiliation doesn't just disappear. It sits in your chest like a stone. You wake up with it. You eat with it. You sleep with it. But eventually, you learn to use that pain, not for revenge, but for strength." Nisha wiped her tears silently. The words struck deep. "I didn't come here tonight to make you feel bad," Mira continued softly. "I came here to thank you." Nisha blinked, confused. "Thank me?" "Yes," Mira said with a small smile. "If you hadn't humiliated me that night, I would never have found my courage. I would still be that quiet woman sitting at home, waiting for others to give her worth. You forced me to rediscover myself." Nisha's mouth fell slightly open. Arav looked stunned. Mira continued, her voice firm but kind. "You thought you broke me that night. But in truth, you built me." For a few seconds, there was complete silence. The sound of the piano in the background seemed to fade. Nisha couldn't stop her tears now. "Auntie, I don't deserve your forgiveness." Mira smiled gently. "Maybe not yet. But forgiveness isn't something you earn, it's something you grow into. Nisha lowered her head. Arav reached across the table and held his mother's hand. Mom, I don't know what to say. You're incredible. Mira looked at her son lovingly. No, Beta. I'm just a mother who wanted her family to live with respect. Dinner went on quietly after that. The waiter served food, but no one said much. Every word had already been spoken, every emotion had already surfaced. At one point, Nisha looked at Mira and said softly, Auntie, would you allow me to join your project? I want to help, really help this time. Mira looked into her eyes and saw sincerity. If your heart is true this time, you're welcome. Nisha smiled weakly, her tears still glistening. For the first time, there was peace between them. But just when it seemed everything had settled, something unexpected happened. As they were finishing dessert, a man walked up to their table. He was tall, neatly dressed, and holding a camera bag. Excuse me, he said politely. Are you Mrs. Mira Sharma? Mira looked surprised. Yes, I am. He smiled. I'm from City Times. We're doing a feature on inspiring women, and your story has gone viral. We wanted to take a quick photo for tomorrow's paper. Arav's eyes widened with pride. That's amazing. But Nisha's face turned pale again. She looked at the people around them, several diners were already whispering, pointing at Mira. The same kind of attention she once craved was now turning toward the woman she had once humiliated. The man clicked a few pictures and thanked her. You're truly an inspiration, ma'am. As he left, the restaurant manager came over and said politely, Mrs. Sharma, the bill is on the house tonight. It's our honor to have you here again. Mira was stunned. Oh, that's not necessary. But he smiled. Please, ma'am. We insist. Arav beamed with pride, but Nisha sat quietly, her hands trembling slightly. She couldn't believe what was happening. The same restaurant where she had once tried to make Mira feel small was now honoring her. When they walked out, people smiled and nodded at Mira. Someone even said softly, That's the lady from the article. Nisha's throat tightened. Her own words from that humiliating night echoed back in her head, You're not used to these kinds of restaurants, right? Now, those same polished walls and glowing chandeliers seemed to bow before Mira's quiet grace. Outside, the air was cool again, just like that first night. But this time, Mira wasn't broken. She was glowing, calm, elegant, powerful in silence. As they reached the car, Nisha turned to her. Auntie. I think this place will always remind me of who I used to be. Mira smiled softly. And it will remind me of who I became. Nisha nodded slowly, her eyes filled with respect, real, deep respect. That night, when Mira returned home, she placed her purse on the table and looked around. The house felt peaceful. She sat by the window, her diary open, pen in hand. She wrote, Tonight, I went back to the place where my dignity once broke. But this time, I walked out whole. Life has a way of returning us to our pain, not to punish us, but to show how far we've come. She smiled, closed the diary, and whispered, Thank you for the lesson, Nisha. Outside, the moon glowed softly, spreading its silver light across the quiet street. Mira looked up and said to herself, I still remember that first night, the shame, the pain, the loneliness. But now, I remember it with peace. Because without that night, this woman would never have been born. She turned off the light, feeling free for the first time in years. But far away, in Arav and Nisha's house, Nisha sat by the window, staring into the darkness. She whispered softly, She forgave me, but can I forgive myself? Her heart felt heavy. She knew forgiveness from others was one thing, forgiving herself would be much harder. And deep down, she sensed, this wasn't the end of their story. Not yet. Because when guilt begins to grow, it often brings hidden truths to the surface. And something inside Nisha told her Mira didn't yet know everything. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through Mira's curtains. The night before had felt like closure, like she had finally healed an old wound. She made her tea, watered her small plants, and sat by the window with her diary. Her heart felt light. But as she wrote, she noticed something strange. Her hands trembled slightly. Not from weakness, but from a strange feeling, a quiet unease. She whispered to herself, "Why does my heart feel heavy again?" Maybe it was just habit, the years of pain that didn't fade in one night. She shook the thought away and continued her day. At noon, Arav called. "Mom, everyone's talking about your photo in City Times. You look amazing." Mira laughed gently. "I saw it. I didn't expect so much attention." Arav chuckled. "You deserve it. You've inspired half the city." They chatted for a while before hanging up. But as Mira set the phone down, she noticed something strange at her doorstep, an envelope. There was no name, no address, just her name written in delicate handwriting, for Mira. She frowned. Who could have left it? The handwriting looked familiar, almost like someone from her past. Curious, she opened it carefully. Inside was a single folded letter and a small photograph. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw the photo. It was of her husband, taken years ago. But he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a woman she didn't recognize, smiling warmly. On the back, written in faint ink, were the words, "Some truths are meant to be told, before they die." Mira's fingers shook. The handwriting again, it felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. She unfolded the letter. "Dear Mira, you don't know me, but I knew your husband. He was kind and gentle, but he carried a secret. Please don't misunderstand, this isn't to hurt you. It's something he wanted to tell you himself but never could. The woman in the picture is not a stranger. Her name is Anita. She was your husband's friend from before your marriage. After his accident, she kept something for him, something he wanted you to have. I am only the messenger. You'll find the truth at 14 Greenfield Street, an old tailor shop. With respect, a well-wisher." Mira read the letter twice, her heartbeat quickening. For a long time, she sat motionless, the words echoing in her mind. Her husband? A secret? Another woman? She tried to calm herself. No, she whispered. He wasn't that kind of man. But the photo, the handwriting, the tone of the letter, it all felt too real. She folded the paper carefully and placed it inside her diary. She didn't know what to do next. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to throw it away and pretend she never saw it. But another part, the part that had learned courage through pain, whispered, "You've faced humiliation, pain, and loss. You can face truth too." She made her decision. Tomorrow morning, she would go to that address. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, memories of her husband flooding back, his laughter, his voice, the way he used to call her Mira G affectionately. She remembered his last days, the way he had held her hand and said, "Some things, Mira, I couldn't tell you yet." At that time, she thought he was talking about financial worries or their son's future. But now, those words had a different weight. Her mind spun with questions. Who wrote that letter? What did Anita keep? And why now, after all these years? The next morning, Mira took a rickshaw and headed toward Greenfield Street. It was an old part of the city, narrow lanes, small shops, and faded paint on walls. She hadn't been there in decades. Finally, she found it, an old tailor shop with a wooden board that said Classic Stitchers. The shutters were half down, the walls covered with dust. She stepped inside. The air smelled of fabric and old memories. Behind the counter sat an old man, his hair white, his eyes tired but kind. "Namaste," Mira said softly. I'm looking for someone named Anita. The old man looked up in surprise. Anita? Oh, you mean Anita Kapoor? She used to work here many years ago. Sweet woman. Passed away last year. Mira's heart sank. Oh. I see. Did she ever leave anything here? For someone named Mira Sharma? The man frowned, thinking hard. Wait, he walked to a small wooden shelf, shuffled through some old boxes, and pulled one out covered in dust. This one. It says for Mira on it. Anita left it with me years ago. She said someone would come one day. Mira's hands trembled as she took the box. Thank you. She paid him and walked out, her heart racing. Outside, she found a quiet bench near a banyan tree. Slowly, she opened the box. Inside was another envelope, a small key, and a short note written in familiar handwriting, her husband's. My dearest Mira. If you're reading this, it means time has passed, and I'm no longer there to explain myself. Please don't let your heart doubt me. Anita was my childhood friend. Before our marriage, her brother and I started a small tailoring business together. When he died, she was left alone with debts. I helped her, but I couldn't tell you, I feared it would worry you. This key belongs to a locker at Imperial Bank. Inside, you'll find the documents and savings I left for you. I didn't want anyone else to know until you were ready to stand strong on your own. Mira, my love, I always knew you had a quiet strength. Maybe that's why I didn't tell you everything. I wanted you to find it when you needed it most. With all my love. Raj. Mira's eyes blurred with tears. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. She pressed the letter to her chest, whispering, "Oh, Raj." All the pain, all the doubts vanished in an instant. Her heart filled with warmth and pride. He hadn't betrayed her. He had protected her even after death. By evening, Mira was at Imperial Bank, the key clutched tightly in her hand. Inside the locker, she found a sealed folder with property papers, savings bonds, and one last letter addressed simply, for Mira's dreams. Inside, it read, "Use this to build something that carries your name. You've always lived for others, but this is for you." Tears streamed down her face. He had believed in her even then, the same belief she had just discovered for herself. She walked out of the bank with trembling hands but a glowing heart. The world around her looked brighter. That night, as she sat in her living room with the letters spread on the table, she whispered, "Raj, you knew. You knew I would need this strength someday." Just then, her phone buzzed, a message from Nisha. "Auntie, can I come over tomorrow? I need to tell you something important." Mira smiled softly. "Yes, Beta. Come." But deep down, she felt something, a quiet pull, like the story wasn't finished yet. Because while her past had given her peace, her present was about to bring another storm. The next day, Nisha arrived early. Her face was pale, her eyes tired. "Auntie," she said quietly, sitting down. "There's something you should know. Something I've been hiding from you and Arav." Mira looked at her, confused. "What is it, Beta?" Nisha's hands trembled as she spoke. "That night, the night you were humiliated at the restaurant, it wasn't an accident. Someone told me to do it." Mira froze. "What do you mean?" Nisha looked down, guilt filling her eyes. "It wasn't my idea. I was manipulated. Someone wanted to see you suffer, to destroy your reputation. And now I know who it was." Mira's heart pounded. "Who, Nisha?" Nisha's voice broke as she whispered the name. And Mira's world tilted again, because the name she said was someone Mira had trusted all her life. The silence that followed Nisha's words felt like thunder. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second stretching longer than the last. Mira sat frozen in her chair, her heart pounding in her chest. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Finally, she whispered, What did you say, Nisha? Nisha swallowed hard, tears filling her eyes. Auntie, I didn't plan that dinner humiliation alone. Someone guided me, pushed me, made me believe you were trying to control Arav and our life. They told me you wanted to make me look small in front of society. And I was foolish enough to believe it. Mira's fingers gripped the edge of the table. Who, Nisha? Who told you that? Nisha looked down, ashamed, her voice trembling. It was, your sister, Artie. The words hit Mira like a storm. Her sister. Her own blood. For a few seconds, Mira couldn't breathe. The room seemed to blur. She blinked rapidly, her throat dry. Artie, she whispered. My Artie? Nisha nodded, her tears flowing freely. Yes, Auntie. She called me weeks before that dinner. She told me you never liked me, that you always wanted Arav to marry someone else. She said you looked down on me because I came from a rich family. She told me to teach you a lesson, to show you your place. Mira shook her head slowly, disbelief flooding her. No, she wouldn't. But deep inside, old memories stirred, small moments she had ignored. Artie's snide comments about her simple life. Her mocking tone when Mira once said she was proud of Arav. Her laughter when Mira started her small women's project. It all came back, one moment at a time. Mira whispered, why would she do this? Nisha wiped her tears. I didn't understand then. But after that night, when things went wrong, she stopped calling me. I realized she had used me. She wanted to see you humiliated, but I don't know why. Mira leaned back, her mind spinning. The sister who had shared her childhood, her secrets, her grief, had betrayed her? That night, Mira sat by the window for hours, watching the streetlights flicker. She thought of her parents, of the promises they'd made to each other as children. She remembered Artie's jealousy when Mira got married first, when her husband Raj built a comfortable life while Artie struggled with her own. Maybe that jealousy never died. Maybe it grew quietly, like a shadow waiting for the right moment. But still, to do this? To make someone else hurt her? Mira's chest ached. At midnight, she opened her diary and began to write. When pain comes from enemies, you can heal. But when it comes from family, it carves a hole inside you. I don't know what's worse, losing trust or realizing it was never real. She closed the diary and looked at her husband's photo. Raj, you always warned me that love and envy can live under the same roof. I didn't want to believe it. The next morning, Mira decided to confront the truth. She got ready, wrapped her shawl, and took a cab to her sister's house. Artie lived in a modern apartment complex, surrounded by polished walls and potted plants. As Mira rang the bell, her hands trembled. Artie opened the door, her usual bright smile fading when she saw Mira's serious face. Mira? What a surprise! Come in. Mira stepped inside quietly. The air smelled of perfume and tension. They sat across from each other. For a few moments, silence filled the space between them, thick, heavy, and uncomfortable. Finally, Mira spoke, her voice calm but sharp. Artie, I need to ask you something. And I want the truth. Artie frowned, pretending confusion. What is it? Mira's eyes locked onto hers. Why did you tell Nisha to humiliate me? Artie froze. The color drained from her face. What? You heard me, Mira said firmly. She told me everything. You called her. You filled her ears with lies about me. You told her I wanted to control her and Arav. Artie laughed weakly. Oh, Mira, please. That girl is just trying to save herself. You believe her over your own sister? But Mira didn't flinch. I believe what my heart already knew. Tell me, Artie, why? Artie's eyes hardened. Why? Because you always had everything, Mira. Always. Mira's breath caught. Everything? What are you talking about? Artie stood up, her voice rising. You had the perfect husband, a loving son, respect in society. Everyone looked at you like you were some saint. And me? I struggled my whole life. People compared me to you, called me the failure. Even after Raj died, people pitied you and praised you, poor Mira, so strong, so noble. It made me sick. Her words sliced through the air like knives. Mira whispered, so you wanted to destroy that image? Artie glared at her. I wanted you to feel what I felt, ignored, unseen, forgotten. Tears filled Mira's eyes. You could have talked to me, Artie. I would have helped you. Artie laughed bitterly. Help? You always acted like the helper, the savior. I didn't want your pity. Mira stood slowly. I never pitied you. I loved you. For a brief moment, Artie's eyes softened, but then she turned away. It's too late for that. Mira looked at her sister one last time. No, Artie. It's not too late to stop hating yourself. Artie didn't reply. She just stood still, her eyes wet but her heart hardened. Mira walked to the door, her voice steady. I forgive you, not for you, but for me. Because I refuse to carry your bitterness inside me. And she left. Back home, Mira collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted but strangely calm. She whispered to herself, now I understand why peace took so long to find. The betrayal hurt, yes, but it also freed her. She had faced every pain that life had hidden from her, humiliation, grief, secrets, betrayal, and yet she stood. That evening, Arav visited her. He saw her quiet face and asked, Mom, are you okay? Mira smiled faintly. I am now. Sometimes, the truth burns, but it also cleanses. Arav sat beside her. Nisha told me everything. She feels horrible. Mira nodded. She made a mistake, but she's trying to change. That's what matters. Arav looked down, guilt filling his eyes. And I failed you too, Mom. I didn't protect you that night. Mira placed her hand on his. You were blinded by love, Beta. We all are, at times. What matters is you see clearly now. He smiled weakly. You always turn pain into wisdom. Mira chuckled softly. Maybe that's what age teaches us, to turn wounds into lessons. Days passed. Mira focused on her project again. The women looked up to her even more now, not just as a teacher, but as an example of resilience. She taught them not only to stitch clothes, but also to stitch their broken confidence. One afternoon, a letter arrived, from Artie. With trembling hands, Mira opened it. Mira. I don't expect forgiveness. You were right, I hated myself more than I ever hated you. Watching you that day, calm and graceful, made me see what I lost. I'm leaving the city for a while. Maybe I need to find peace too. Artie. Mira smiled sadly. Maybe this is her first step toward healing. She folded the letter gently and placed it beside her husband's old note. That night, she stood by the window again. The moonlight bathed the street in silver, just like the night she had been humiliated. She whispered, I still remember that night, but now, it feels like a different life. Her journey had come full circle, from humiliation to dignity, from confusion to clarity. But deep inside, she knew her story wasn't quite over. Because forgiveness is easy to say, hard to live. And sometimes, even after peace returns, fate brings one last test, to see if the heart has truly healed. Months passed after Artie's letter. Life slowly returned to a calm rhythm, quiet mornings, peaceful evenings, and laughter once again echoing in Mira's home. Arav and Nisha had started spending more time with her. They often joined her for tea, sometimes helping the women in her sewing center. Nisha was truly trying to change, humble, kind, and patient. It seemed like all the darkness had finally left. But Mira knew life never ends its lessons easily. Sometimes, peace comes just before the final storm. One afternoon, Mira received an invitation, a community event celebrating local entrepreneurs. Her women's project had been nominated for an award. It was a big moment for her, proof that her pain had not been wasted. When she told Arav and Nisha, they were thrilled. "Mom, that's amazing." "You deserve it," Arav said, hugging her tightly. Nisha smiled shyly. "We'll both be there to cheer for you, Auntie." Mira smiled warmly. "Then it will be a perfect day." But that night, as she looked at the invitation again, a strange thought crossed her mind. Artie's name was also printed among the guests. Apparently, she had joined a local NGO as a guest speaker. For a moment, Mira's hand froze. After all that happened, was she ready to see her sister again? She closed her eyes and whispered, "Maybe this is the last test, not from life, but from my own heart." The day of the event arrived. The hall was decorated with golden drapes, flowers, and the soft hum of people chatting. The air smelled of coffee and roses. Mira wore a simple pastel sari, elegant, graceful. As she entered, she could feel proud eyes turning toward her. Many of the women she had trained were present, clapping and smiling. Arav and Nisha sat in the front row, waving at her excitedly. When her name was announced as the winner of Women's Strength and Leadership Award, the applause filled the room. Mira walked to the stage slowly, her heart swelling with emotion. As she received the trophy, she looked up, and her eyes met Artie's. Her sister was standing at the back of the hall, dressed in a blue sari, her expression unreadable. For a second, the world around Mira blurred. All the old memories, laughter, fights, betrayal, flashed before her eyes. The audience waited as she took the microphone. Mira inhaled deeply and began. "I stand here not because I never fell, but because I learned to rise every time life pushed me down. This award is not just for me, it's for every woman who was made to feel small but found her strength again." Her voice trembled slightly as she glanced toward Artie again. "And sometimes, strength means forgiveness, even when your heart still remembers the pain." The hall went silent. Mira smiled faintly, finishing her speech to a wave of applause. After the event, Artie hesitated near the exit, holding her purse tightly. She seemed unsure whether to leave or approach. Mira noticed her, and for a long moment, neither moved. Then Mira took the first step. She walked over slowly, her calm eyes meeting her sister's nervous ones. Artie's voice cracked, "You did it, Mira. You always rise, even after everything." Mira smiled gently. "I rise because I stopped waiting for others to lift me." Artie looked down, tears glistening. "I wanted to come to you sooner, but I was ashamed." Mira touched her arm softly. "It takes courage to show your face after a mistake. You did that. That's enough." For the first time in years, Artie hugged her, a quiet, trembling embrace. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Mira didn't reply. She just held her sister tightly, letting the silence heal what words could not. That evening, as they all sat together, Mira, Arav, Nisha, and Artie, the atmosphere was warm but fragile, like glass. Artie spoke softly, "Nisha, I wronged you too. I used you to hurt her." Nisha shook her head quickly. "No, Auntie, I wronged her first. I believed lies without thinking." For a moment, all three women sat quietly, united by regret and the courage to face it. Arav, watching them, finally said, "Maybe this is what family means, breaking, hurting, but still choosing to sit together." Mira looked at him lovingly. "Yes, Beta. Family isn't about perfection. It's about forgiveness. Days turned into weeks again, and peace seemed to settle for real this time. But life, as always, had one more surprise waiting. One night, Mira received a phone call. It was from the hospital. Artie had collapsed during an NGO event and was admitted immediately. Mira's heart raced as she rushed to the hospital with Arav. When they reached, the doctor said softly, "She's stable now, but she's very weak. Emotional stress and neglect of health, it's been going on for months." Mira entered the room quietly. Artie lay pale and tired, her breathing shallow. When she saw Mira, a faint smile appeared on her lips. "Looks like my body decided to stop before my heart did," Artie said weakly. Mira sat beside her, holding her hand. "You'll be fine. You just need rest." Artie shook her head slowly. "I needed peace, Mira. I found it too late." Tears welled up in Mira's eyes. "Don't talk like that. You have time. We'll start again, together." Artie smiled faintly. "You always had hope, even for those who didn't deserve it." Mira squeezed her hand. "You deserved love, Artie. You just forgot what it looked like." For a moment, Artie's eyes softened, then closed. "Thank you for not hating me." The heart monitor beeped steadily, and Mira sat silently, whispering prayers into the air. That night, she didn't sleep. She stayed beside her sister, watching over her, like she used to when they were little girls. Morning sunlight streamed through the window. Artie opened her eyes weakly and whispered, "Mira." "Yes?" "Promise me something," Artie said faintly. "Don't let bitterness live in our family again. Teach them to love without pride." Mira's throat tightened. "I promise." Artie smiled softly, her eyes closing again, this time in peace. She didn't wake up again. Days later, when Mira lit the small lamp in front of her sister's photo, tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She whispered, "You left, but you took the poison with you. Now, only peace remains." Nisha and Arv stood beside her, their hands joined. Nisha said gently, "Auntie, she found peace because of you." Mira looked at her and smiled faintly. "Maybe that was my final test, to forgive so deeply that even death couldn't break it." That evening, she walked to her sewing center once again. The women were chatting, laughing, stitching bright-colored fabrics. One of them said, "Madam, your story should be written in books." Mira smiled softly. "No, my story should be lived, by every woman who thinks pain ends her life. Pain doesn't end you. It remakes you." She looked at the sunset, a sky of orange and gold, and whispered, "Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It frees the future." And for the first time in years, Mira felt light. Truly light. The days after Artie's funeral were quiet. The house that once echoed with anger, pain, and misunderstandings now carried a deep silence, not heavy, but peaceful. For Mira, every corner of the house seemed to tell a story of love, betrayal, forgiveness, and the courage to start again. Each morning, she lit a small oil lamp in front of her sister's photo and whispered a prayer. Not of sorrow, but of gratitude. Gratitude that life had given her the strength to face everything and still stand tall. She had seen humiliation, jealousy, manipulation, and heartbreak. But she had also seen redemption, kindness, and forgiveness. It was strange how the same heart that once broke could learn to love again, even stronger than before. One afternoon, Arav found his mother sitting on the veranda, staring at the sky. He quietly sat beside her and said, "You know, Mom, I still think about that night at the restaurant." Mira smiled faintly. "I still remember that night too," she said softly. "The night everything began to change." Arav looked down. "I was blind. I let Nisha insult you and I didn't stop her. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that." Mira placed her hand on his shoulder gently. Then listen to me carefully, Arav. Guilt doesn't fix the past. Only change does. And you've changed. That's enough. Her words were calm, but powerful. They carried years of wisdom, the kind that only pain can teach. Arav nodded slowly, his eyes wet. You've become my biggest teacher, Mom. Mira smiled warmly. No, Beta. Life was the teacher. I was just paying attention. Later that week, Mira was invited to give a small speech at the community center. It was an event for young women, many of them from broken homes, struggling to find courage. When Mira walked to the stage, the audience clapped warmly. She stood quietly for a moment, then began to speak, her voice steady, her eyes glowing with quiet strength. There was a time I thought my story ended the night someone humiliated me in front of strangers. I thought my dignity was gone, that love had no place for me anymore. But I was wrong. The hall was silent, everyone listening closely. Humiliation is not the end of your worth. When someone tries to make you small, it's because they can't handle your light. But remember, your peace, your kindness, your dignity, those things no one can take unless you hand them over. She paused, looking around. Some women had tears in their eyes. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself. I forgave my daughter-in-law. I forgave my sister. And by doing that, I set myself free. The crowd began to applaud softly, not the loud, empty kind of applause, but the heartfelt kind that comes from understanding. After the speech, a young girl came up to her. She looked nervous but inspired. Ma'am, how did you forgive people who hurt you so much? Mira smiled. Because I didn't want to carry their mistakes inside me anymore. Forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. The girl nodded, wiping her tears. Thank you. I'll try. Mira placed her hand on her shoulder. Don't just try. Promise yourself that your pain won't become your personality. Let it make you wiser, not bitter. That evening, when Mira returned home, she saw Nisha waiting at the gate with Arav. Nisha walked up to her with a small box. Auntie, I wanted to give you something. Mira opened it carefully. Inside was a small silver bracelet with the words strength and silence engraved on it. Nisha said shyly, You taught me that real strength isn't loud. It's in forgiveness and patience. I want to remember that every day. Mira's eyes softened. You've changed so much, Beta. Nisha smiled with tears in her eyes. Because you didn't give up on me when I didn't deserve it. Mira hugged her, whispering, That's what mothers do, even when they're not born from your womb. Arav watched them, a peaceful smile on his face. For the first time in years, his family felt whole again. Days turned into months. Mira continued her community work, helping women start small businesses, guiding them like a quiet force of nature. Every person she helped carried a piece of her story, a story of loss, pain, courage, and forgiveness. Sometimes at night, she would sit near her window, the moonlight spilling softly into the room. She would close her eyes and think about all the people who had entered her life, each one a teacher in disguise. Artie taught her how destructive jealousy can be. Nisha taught her how ignorance can blind love. And life itself taught her that forgiveness is the only real victory. One night, Mira heard a gentle knock on her door. It was Nisha, holding Arav's hand. They looked excited, almost nervous. Mom, Arav said, we wanted to tell you something. Nisha smiled shyly. We're going to have a baby. For a moment, Mira just stared, her eyes wide with surprise, then joy filled her heart like sunlight through clouds. She hugged them both tightly, whispering, This house will finally have laughter again. Her heart swelled with emotions, gratitude, love, peace, everything she once thought she had lost. Months later, Mira held her grandchild for the first time. A tiny, sleeping baby wrapped in a white blanket. She looked down at the little face and whispered softly, You are born from forgiveness, my child. Never let pride destroy love the way it once did in our family. As she cradled the baby, tears rolled down her cheeks, not of sadness, but of fulfillment. Every pain, every tear, every lonely night, it had all led to this moment. Peace. A complete circle. Years later, people in her town spoke of Mira as a woman of quiet strength. They said her eyes carried stories and her smile carried healing. But when people asked her what gave her that strength, she always said the same thing. When life humiliates you, don't fight to hurt back. Fight to rise above. The sweetest revenge is peace. And with that, she would smile, a smile that carried both pain and forgiveness, fire and calm. That night, as the lamps flickered and her grandchild's laughter echoed in the courtyard, Mira sat by the window one last time. She whispered softly, as if speaking to her sister in heaven. "You were right, Artie. Love without pride, that's the lesson." She looked up at the sky, her eyes glistening in the moonlight. The world outside was silent, peaceful, like her heart. "I still remember that night," she murmured. "The night humiliation became my teacher, and forgiveness became my freedom." She smiled. The story had finally come full circle. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, no matter how deep the pain, forgiveness will always set you free. Thank you for listening.